Alrighty, we are live. Thank you so much, everyone, for making time for today's session with Ryan Stark and Nic Nielsen. First and foremost, we truly understand how valuable your time is, and we're really excited for you to be here. So, with that said, I started a quick poll in the chat, and we're always just really intrigued around what percentage of even advisors have an estate plan. So, do me a favor, pop into the poll, answer the question really quick. And again, the question is just if you have an updated estate plan yourself. To kind of set the stage really quick, introduce myself if we haven't had the chance to meet. Andreas Mazabel, I help lead our advisor channel here at Trust and Will. Started coming up on 2 years now. Seems like a long time in startup life, but super grateful to be here. And I wanted to introduce Ryan Stark to everyone. He actually started, what are you, Ryan, about a month in or so?
Yep. Beginning of December, end of November.
Yeah. And really what we're really excited about is the progress that we made as a channel last year. We've actually doubled the number of team members focusing primarily on financial advisors. So Ryan, why don't you kick it off with just a quick intro on yourself, what brought you to Trust and Will, and then we'll go ahead and kick it off.
Absolutely. And I feel like rather than doing the typical intro about myself, I tell everybody a quick story about especially why I'm here, how I got here, and why I'm passionate about this. So as an advisor with a decade of experience, I was an advisor for about 5 years, and I got as far to provide a life insurance illustration to somebody. He left, said he would think about it. 8 months later, I got a call from his wife with the unfortunate news that he passed away from a heart attack. And she had the illustration in hand that I delivered, and she was wondering how to move forward with collecting the money. So unfortunately, when I went back in the folder, I had to tell her that he never moved forward. No life insurance, no estate planning documents. And that was the first time as an advisor when I actually witnessed, luckily the only time, when I actually witnessed someone who was so upset at their spouse just for passing away that I believe she essentially skipped the grieving process. That was one of my greatest lessons that I had as an advisor, to know what my real value was, which was to make sure that people take action on the steps that I know are crucial to their success, especially the intangibles. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, and why I'm excited to bring Nic here, because I don't think there's many advisors out there who are doing it much better.
Ryan, I can certainly relate. Spending 13 years in private banking, I set up way too many probate and estate accounts, and I definitely saw the impact, the pain, really the hurdles that families face. So really excited to have this conversation today. Quick agenda, and then we'll do, Ryan, I'll pass it to you to intro our special guest, Nic. But again, great for everyone to be here. We'll do a very quick 2 or 3 minute agenda or introduction in Trust and Will. We ended up having a ton of advisors sign up for our series today that are not working with Trust and Will. So again, today's goal isn't to give you a pitch of Trust and Will, but more to talk about how advisors like Nic are doing an exceptional job at really implementing the financial plan. And then we'll obviously give you all the contact information for you to reach out to us if you have questions, follow-ups, anything like that. But Ryan, I'll pass it to you just for a quick intro for Nic Nielsen, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Absolutely. So Nic, I appreciate you sending me the bio. I summarized a little bit, and I hope I do this justice. So please let me know, and feel free to add in some points about yourself. So in 2017, after about 13 years in the bank channel, where, as Nic has described to me, he became the financial planner he is today, he and his business partner, Jeff Walters, went independent to build what you'll see as Know My Plan. A lot of people know Nic on LinkedIn. Besides amazing content, Nic has the processes that I believe that we're going to talk about today that really add into making a really amazing business, is why I'm excited. And with that, every client at Know My Plan gets a custom financial fortress blueprint, which is a one-page financial plan that delivers clear and concise next steps. And that's something that we're really going to hone in on today, something that I've never seen before until Nic presented it to me about a year ago. And I'm really excited for him to come in here and talk about that. They manage over 125 million in assets for approximately 200 households. So with 2 people, you can imagine 3 now. With 3, you can imagine that they've built the processes necessary to service everybody. So I'm super excited for Nic to be here. And I really appreciate him at least spending a little bit of time sharing the immense amount of knowledge he's learned from the bank channel, as well as now being on his own. Cool.
Amazing.
So, thank you. That is the end.
That is the end. Great. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll dive right into it. For anyone that's not familiar with Trust and Will, we started roughly about 4 years ago. And when we really looked at the industry, we saw a huge gap. And it's that most families don't have an estate plan. So quick background, these are really the true problems that we're solving. 60% of families don't have an estate plan. As most of you know or should know, the great wealth transfer, about 30 trillion in assets is expected to be inherited and passed hands in the next 2 decades. And these last 2 points is how can we enable financial advisors through what Nic's going to talk a little bit about today, enable advisors that through comprehensive planning and having legacy planning conversations, we can avoid the fact that 90% of the time when a family passes, those assets leave the firm. And there's been plenty of studies on this, that the fact that 46% of advisors and planners that are incorporating holistic planning have higher revenue in their models. So why is this important to advisors? One, you're here, so you understand the kind of importance, but these are kind of the 3 pillars that we really talk about. How can we help advisors differentiate their practice from technology? 2, how can we leverage comprehensive planning to really help grow and maintain AUM? And then 3, the story that Ryan talked about at the beginning. How can we add peace of mind to families? So we offer state-specific plans in all 50 states. I'm actually going to skip through this. If you have questions on the products, get to us or reach out to us, because we really want to make this a little bit more about the process that Nic and his team have built and how we can essentially enable advisors and planners to provide more holistic planning. So with that said, Ryan, I will pass it to you. And then these are kind of the 3 main things that we'll talk about, but conversation is open for you, Nic.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Am I controlling this deck now? Are you controlling this?
I can control.
Oh, cool. Just making sure I'm not clicking. Awesome.
We're good. All good.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm again super excited to be talking about this, and I want to dive right into the financial process with Nic. So Nic, how's it going, man? How are you today?
Yeah, it's going great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be the first one on this great journey that I know that you guys are gonna just launch off and do a great job with.
Absolutely. Looking to make this monthly. So super excited to be able to build this community and really add to it. Something I've always been passionate about. And again, as an advisor, working with advisors, I love the world and what we're doing and stuff. And again, I've learned more from, I would say, you, Nic, than anybody else. So when they first said, I'm starting something like this, I'm building a community, you were the first person to come to mind to be on here. So again, appreciate you even taking a little bit of time to hang out with us. So thanks so much.
Always. Where should we start?
So I'd like to start really just going through your planning process and lead into the one-page financial plan. So feel free to kind of give an overview about what you're doing. And if there's anything to highlight, I would just say what you've learned over the years and how many meetings you have, and just a quick synopsis of what your plan looks like when you're introduced to somebody new.
Yeah, so I think, first off, to steal a Nic Murrayism, I think everybody thinks that we're in the knowledge industry and our goal is to depart knowledge upon our clients, where really we're in the doing business. We are here, we exist to serve our clients, to help them do things that helps, implement a plan to improve their financial situation, right? All the knowledge in the world doesn't help anybody if there's never a step that's taken to implement. There has to be an action where they do something. So at the 30,000 foot view, our process, we call it diem, like carpe diem, seize the day. And the D, that's just for discovery. Like that is discovering your dreams. That is where you are, where you want to go. The second step is I, that's for ideas. How do we take you from where you are to where you want to go in the most optimal way? 3, we come beside you and we help you execute on those ideas that are going to be highlighted in the one-page plan, which we call the Financial Fortress Blueprint. And we think the most important part of the plan is the M. That's the ongoing monitoring of the plan. And it's kind of a circle that goes around and around, because we know that the moment a plan is put into place that it's wrong. We just hope that it's less wrong by having a plan than had we not had a plan at all. And we're going to have to continue and go back through that discovery, create new ideas, execute and monitor again continually over time, because we know that there's going to be life events that happen, whether they be, death, divorce, job change, new child, that's going to make us come up with new ideas. And we're going to have to monitor the plan anyway, because all of our assumptions are going to be wrong, whether they're around interest rates, inflation, rates of return, how much we're saving on a monthly basis, what the employer match is. Those are all variables that we have to tweak and continue to change over time. It is far from a set it and forget it type of planning experience.
Of course, like monitoring is super important, but one thing I'm hearing from you especially is that I feel like implementation starts from the beginning. How important is the language you use to set the tone for the relationship?
Yeah, I think the language is incredibly important, because I don't want to be viewed as the investment guy. Like I am the plan, I'm the planner, right? The value that I add is the plan. The investment management is really just a commodity that comes with. And you never want to set yourself out, or I don't want to set myself out as some sort of magic wizard who's going to be able to time the market and tell you when to get in and when to buy the dip and when to sell. That's just not what we believe in. So the language you say from the beginning is incredibly important, because you want to detract as many people as possible from wasting your time or not being good fits. If somebody is out there looking for an investment manager to consistently beat the market, to consistently get out of dips, like I'm not the guy. And everything that I'm putting out into the world is really highlighted about 1, behavior, but 2, who my ideal clients are. And, the ideal clients for us typically are, a 42-year-old and 38-year-old couple who have 3 kids. They're super busy executives. They are trying their best to get their kids in the minivan just in time to rush through Chick-fil-A to get some chicken nuggets before they arrive at the baseball field. And they get to the baseball field 5 minutes before the game starts, and they immediately rush home. They get the showers, they put the kids to bed, and they're working on their presentation they got to do at work the next day. That is the avatar of the average client that we're working with. And most of them have reached a point. It's not that they can't do this stuff on their own. They probably shouldn't do it on their own, but they just simply don't have the time, because their life has reached some sort of complexity point, whether it be ISOs or RSUs or employee stock purchase plans. They need somebody to kind of come along beside them and be their Sherpa and guide them through this journey that's become a little bit too complex and a little bit too time consuming from where they're at this point in their life.
And in terms of that, I feel like you said that complexity point. So the RSUs, money always seems to be in people's faces. Like, I got to manage this. The stock market's going up and down. They can always see it. How are you presenting the value of the intangibles, like insurance or like estate planning?
Yeah, so we go through the same process with every client every time. We do what we call our castle picture. And it literally just breaks every dollar they have into 5 buckets. We tell people, intentionally or unintentionally, everything that you own falls into one of these 5 buckets. And that first bucket is emergency funds. The second bucket is our major purchases. This is setting dollars aside for purchases we're going to have coming up in the next 3 years. And those first 2 buckets, like a lot of times after that, I'll draw a dotted line on and say, hey, the only thing these 2 buckets are for is number 1, safety, number 2, liquidity. On the other side of this dotted line, what we're trying to do is maximize your returns for your particular plan and risk tolerance. So bucket number 3 is our intermediate bucket. In that point, those are dollars that have flowed over from our emergency funds, right? Maybe our goal is to have $25,000 in our emergency fund. Once we have more than $25,000, the pour over happens into the intermediate account. That's where we're starting to invest for other goals, dreams, aspirations. Maybe that's the 529, maybe that's joint brokerage accounts, that's the employee stock purchase plans, the ISOs, the RSUs, those types of things. Bucket number 4 is our nest egg. Those are generally our long-term retirement type assets, our Roth 401ks, our 403bs, our IRAs. And then finally, it's our legacy. And we go through the legacy bucket with every client. How do we protect the greatest asset that most of us have, our ability to earn an income, disability insurance? What happens if, we don't wake up tomorrow morning? Do we have the right amount and the right type of life insurance? Do we have our estate planning documents in order? And that's our legacy bucket. We go through that with every client every time. And then also on that castle picture, we have the other assets like a home, a business, raw land. And so what we're trying to do is pictorially draw out their balance sheet. And regardless if somebody has met with us one time or this is appointment number 40, we're going through that castle picture and updating it because we think it's really imperative for people to know what they own, why they own it, and where it fits into their overall picture. And everybody goes through that process a little bit differently, but we have found it incredibly powerful and we've asked clients to do this, when we just hand them a sheet of paper and say, hey, Ryan, why don't you go ahead and draw out your castle picture for us? And we know that when they can do that, you undoubtedly have a client for life. And if they're that understanding of the process, that involved in it, they're probably also going to start referring you people as well.
And is this castle picture, is this the same one-page financial plan? Is this the financial fortress blueprint?
Yeah, so the castle picture is really the center of that. I don't know if you want to share it. We could just talk through that a little bit if you'd like.
I absolutely do. Oh, cancel. Wait. Where is it?
Put you on the spot.
Sure did. No, I
It's
had it.
I'm telling you, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm super curious. What would you say has been the biggest hurdle in getting a client to follow through with the planning process?
Well, I will say when I first started out, I thought I was doing everything right. I would give people 80 to 120 page plans, and there'd be 3 lists of action steps because that's how I was told to do it. That's how you did it.
Yeah.
And, we'd do an annual plan type of meeting and we'd revisit it. And I'd always kind of open up to page, 78 and say, hey, these are the action steps. There's 26 to-do items. How do we do? And they just kind of look at you blank and be like, yeah, we didn't do any of those things. So what we have learned over time is that we never, even if we have 25 action items, we never want to give clients more than 2 to 4 things at any given moment. Because these are generally people who are already overwhelmed, who already don't have a lot of time on their hands. If we can give them 2 to 4 action items and get those things done, much more likely to get implemented. And now that 95% of our meetings are virtual, we try to do everything, live with the client that we can through screen share.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point in terms of, instead of saying, hey, here's 50 things we're going to focus on, is how can we focus on a couple at a time? Does that change? And if so, how does that change from family to family that you serve in terms of like what you prioritize?
Yeah. So the way that my mindset works is I always start with the worst case scenario, and so generally the things that are the pillars, the foundational items are going to be the estate planning documents, the disability insurance, the life insurance. Those are, the what happens if I die tomorrow, what happens if I can no longer create an income for my family, right? Those are the most pressing items. I'm not one that believes in start where the clients want to start, because if you do that, you might never have the tough conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Let me know if everybody can see this. Can you see my screen or is it showing the dashboard?
We can't see anything yet, Ryan.
Okay. For some reason, when I tried this yesterday in terms of sharing the PDF, here we go. Go figure, this is human error. I popped up the PDF, so give me 1 second.
And if not, you can always pull up the PDF and just share your screen wherever you have it shared as well.
That is exactly what I was trying to do. Okay, PDF.
The suspense is building over this one-page plan.
Authorized.
Custom artwork for every client.
It's asking me to authorize. Okay, I might just skip this because I'm fumbling around and I don't want to mess everybody. Absolutely, I'll do that. So with going through that, Nick, the first thing I want to ask too is what led you in your career to realizing that all people needed was one page?
Yeah, because my honest opinion is people paid thousands of dollars for financial plans that were nothing more than, a doorstop. I mean, people did not open these things. I remember, I spent 13 years at the bank, as you alluded to in the intro, and I worked closely with the wealth management department. And there was one particular guy that I got to know pretty well. He kind of just had me do some of the plans as a young bank guy because he didn't really want to do them anymore. And I was like, well, tell me about this client. I mean, he's paying $50,000 for this plan. I was like, how many things does he actually implement? And, the guy looked at me and said, he's never taken one of these ideas, but we do it every year. And I was like, well, what if we just give him one page of the plan? He's not doing anything anyway. What do we have to lose? And literally we handed him one page with 3 bullet list things on him. And he brought in a bunch of money because he brought more money to the bank. He got a life insurance policy. So I was like, here they've had this relationship for 5, 6, 7 years going through the same process. Guy never did anything new. Repetitive. We did something different, took it down to one page. All of a sudden, he started implementing things. And if you think about how you consume content, how most people consume things, they want just give me the simple, brass tacks, give it to me straight. It's not that we don't have other supporting details behind the scenes. If someone, for a lot of people, we say, hey, what you need is $1.2 million in 20-year term insurance. Most people will say, okay, that's great. Let's do it. Other people will say, well, can you tell me how you calculated that? Sure. That's not going to fit on the one-page plan, but I have supporting documentation that I can go and show them how we calculated it. Or, really what we need to do is we need to do $38,000 in a Roth conversion. Some people will say, okay, great, let's do it. Other people will say, hey, show me the math. Why are we doing that? We have the supporting documentation if needed, but we're not going to give every piece of supporting documentation to somebody because it just overwhelms them and they don't take action.
And it sounds like you've already alluded to this a little bit, but compared to before the one-page plan, what has been the results of this? Has it been substantial? Has it been, you see the organization, but what's it been since you started handing people one piece of paper instead of 50?
Well, first of all, it's a much better work-life balance. As an advisor, it's just a much better way of life. It's much more stress-free. It's a better experience for the client. And it just gives us more time when we get together to talk, where we can spend more time focusing on their dreams and aspirations and what's changing in their life, as opposed to focusing on page 37, chart 34. They don't want to see charts. They don't want market commentary. They expect us to know the market commentary.
And I shot it to your email just so you have it, Andres, in case you wanted to try to download it and show that plan, just so you have it. It's super interesting, and I'll tell you why I'm fighting so hard to make sure we get this seen. First of all, I apologize to everybody. I could tell you what happened, but who cares? We'll fix it. I really want everybody to see this plan because to me it was like, you talking about it is cool and it seems like a great theory, but when I saw it and I saw it drawn out, it really sparked something, especially as me as an advisor. And I can imagine as somebody who, as a client walking in, it's so easy to make being an advisor complicated. It's so easy to use jargon and accidentally step into that world where I think people remember the 10% of what you said in a meeting if you're starting to talk about intricacies of what we do. So one thing that I love about this plan is that it really does give a drawn out illustration snapshot. And while it has figures on there, a picture has 1,000 words. So it's nice that you have the supporting documentation, But I would also imagine that this is a clear summary that brings up those questions that people didn't even know to ask in a nice way.
Yeah. In the way that we've built this castle picture and the dialogue that goes with it, we have it to a point now where it flows really well for us. You know, we don't really have to think about what questions that we're going to ask or anything of that nature. And we just kind of flow from left to right, income coming in, the expenses coming out, and it just flows. And, we work with people who are, executives or people who are doing well, high achievers, however you want to phrase it. One thing they don't like is if they get a frowny face. Like, the power of the frowny face in our business is incredibly powerful. And if you look under you'll see that there is a pink frowny face by the estate documents. And assets are in green, liabilities in the pinkish red. And I think we have some people who have done estate documents just because they don't want the frowny face. They want it to be green with a smiley the next time that we meet. And the thing I like about this, I know it's very controversial with advisors. There's some people that really like it. There's some people that loathe it. My plan shouldn't be your plan. Take whatever is important to your practice and how you disseminate information to clients in the key takeaways, right? I like drawing the balance sheet out pictorially because I think it helps people remember it. But you could certainly go into your financial planning software and copy and paste the balance sheet, right in that middle sections. I just like having that left column as someone's dreams and aspirations. That middle section is for the balance sheet and where they're at. And that third column is just our next steps in that process.
So I feel like, even the best process in the world, the nicest picture, there's still going to be people not executing. So I'd love to get into your follow-up process, which, if there's anything beyond the frowny face, what you're doing to help making sure that people are that are executing on what you said in the future.
Yeah. So you'll see at the very bottom, next step we have here, next appointment 2/1/22 at 10 a.m. on Zoom, right? So we always have a next step. And what is important about having this one-page plan is I start with this as a template. And I say, okay, where are we at? I sent the first bullet point, send link to trust and will to complete estate planning documents. Hey, Ryan, where are we at in that process? Right? And I just shut up and I wait. I just stare them down until they give me an answer. And then I might give them some corresponding questions if they haven't done it. I thought it was really important to make sure that you leave a legacy to your children and grandchildren. What happens if you wake up tomorrow morning and you can no longer make a living? What happens, heaven forbid, if you get hit by a truck on the way to work? Whatever the case is, right? We say these things are important. Let's take the next steps and make sure we're getting these things executed. All right. So what happens generally that I see with high achievers is if you give them 2 to 4 things, it's almost like a race to finish. And so a lot of times I'll get an email that says, hey, Nick, just wanted to let you know we did X, Y, Z. And I will send you back an email. Ryan, that sounds great. It looks like the only thing that you missed on your list was getting your estate planning documents done. What can I do to help you make sure we get those executed? And then I wait, I call them, whatever the case is. And then I just put a tickler on our file, a couple weeks out. Hey, Ryan, you sent me an email at the end of January, and I just wanted to follow up. Just wanted to confirm you have your estate planning documents done. Could you send me a PDF when those are completed? Whatever. And I don't let go. I don't give them new tasks until those are done. And that's how we make sure that life insurance gets enforced. That's how we make sure that we have disability in place. That's how we make sure their estate planning documents get done. I always promise them, no matter how painful it is to make those decisions, to execute on those documents, you're going to feel 1,000 times better once it's done. And there's nothing you can't do with a glass of wine in 45 minutes. We're not asking for a this is not a 3 to 5 hour time commitment to get these things done.
Why do you feel people are not doing it beyond the fact of confronting death?
I think it's a hard conversation to have, especially, when it's hard when you have young kids, which a lot of our clients do. Who's going to watch over, who's going to take care of the kids if we're both gone, right? And those are super hard conversations. And I would remind people, if you don't make a decision, the court will. So these are revocable decisions. You can change these documents, but it would be best to have something in place on what you think is the best possible outcome today. But then you ask people, hey, is there a stumbling block? Is there something that's keeping you up at night that's preventing you from executing these documents? Is there a reason? You seem to be an incredibly high achiever, and you've gotten everything else done. There's just this one thing that you haven't done. Is there a reason why? And it may not be the estate planning documents. It might be somebody that has medical bills, and maybe they're just mad because they have these medical bills and they don't think they should pay them. It's like, you can be mad or not, but it's going to ruin your credit if you don't pay them. And having good credit's pretty important, So whatever the stumbling block is, we just try to dig a little deeper and play amateur, psychologist to make sure that we can try to get in the doing business and making sure that they take the next step towards improving the situation.
Do clients go on a different follow-up process for people who have completed what you said, are in maybe what you could call maintenance, versus people who haven't done what you said? Are you meeting with them more frequently, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So whenever we take on a new family, the first 18 months, we're trying to get done the bulk of the heavy lifting, right? So then after the first 18 months, we hope that we have implemented as much as possible of the protection type of needs. And then from there, it's mostly into that maintenance type of thing. And then they will need us in spurts, right? Whether, I tell people we might meet 9 times in the first year, and that might be what we have to do to get this plan right. But, after that, it might be once or twice a year over the next decade. But then, heaven forbid, you might have a parent pass away, or you receive an inheritance, or, you're preparing to sell your business. We might meet 10 times in 2 months, right? So I think the relationship goes in spurts. We just want to make sure that when we are meeting with people, that we are providing a lot of value, and we're just going to come right at them with the truth and what we think the simple, concise next steps are. Sometimes our meetings are as short as 15 minutes. Sometimes, they're much longer, but we're trying to get the bulk of the heavy lifting done within the first 18 months.
And for anybody watching, if you have direct questions for Nic, feel free to shoot them out and we'll bring them up as we go. So feel free to ask those questions about anything you have, just to point that out.
Yeah, we'll spend a few minutes because we do have a ton of questions here in the chat. Before that, Nic, something that this is really hitting the point. One thing I want to just highlight, I love the dream section, how it's kind of the first thing in the plan. And I believe this is something that Carl Richards really helps preach in terms of how can we help consumers align their capital with what's really important to them. So what are some best practices that you've implemented in terms of like helping someone really understand or spend some time thinking about what that is?
Yeah, so you get a little bit better at it over time. I wasn't very good at that 15 years ago. I'm better at it today. It's just kind of, obviously there's the questions like, who are the money for, what does happiness mean to you? All of those type of questions, but you're just trying to get a feel for the person on, hey, if you were financially independent today, what would your life look like? What are the things you'd want to do when you woke up in the morning? If you could, if you didn't have to worry about money, you knew you always had enough, what are the things you'd want to do? I think about my neighbor who's incredibly financially independent. And, he's like, I just want to wake up. I want to play pickleball in the morning. I want to go somewhere and have a nice Caesar salad with shrimp. In the afternoon, I want to go play 9 holes of golf. I don't want to play 18 because I'll be achy. I want to come home, I want to have a nice glass of red wine. I'll probably need to stretch for a little bit. I'm going to call my kids and grandkids and tell them that I love them and tell them they can come and visit me twice a year, no more. And I want to leave them a nice legacy when this is all over and want to make sure they can continue this income stream.
I love that.
So, the more that you can get people talking about their ideal day, what are the most important things to you? If money didn't exist, how would you live your life? And
I think we lost you, Nick.
Yeah, I lost your sound wise. Oh.
Let's see.
Okay, we can hear you. Nope, you're good.
Yeah. So one couple recently was telling me how disappointed they were that they were going to have to work to 65. This new couple, and we got talking about it. We went through the plan, and the next meeting I came back and I said, you guys realistically can retire at 48 with what you've told me. And the guy was so happy. He's like, all I want to do is get a small house in the mountains. I want to eat Indian food every day and play guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just about figuring out what is important to them. I try not to use the word goals. It's kind of like a dirty word. I think now people are like, what are your dreams? What's your best day look like? What are the things that really get you excited to do?
Yeah. I love that. It's super important. And then, Ryan, why don't you and I go through some of the questions that we have on here?
Yeah,
before we do that, what I wanted to really highlight really quick is, and I know, Nick, that you've been leveraging this tool a lot when it comes to really accountability. We built our platform and advisor dashboard to give an advisor the ability to really track your client's progress. There's been plenty of studies, but one of the top 5 reasons as to why families or individuals typically hire a planner is for accountability. It's like, I know I need to get my stuff together. I need someone to help me educate, provide some resources, and hold me accountable for it. So just want to highlight this really quick. As an advisor, you're able to see when a client starts, when they finish. The last time they made an update, this was very interesting. I was recently meeting with a firm, and they said, we love the ability that if my client gets their documents done today, and a year from now, I meet with them and they've had a kid or they bought a home, whatever the case might be, I can actually proactively see if my client has updated their plan or not to see, hey, you had your child, let's make sure you get that done. So it's proactively making sure that your clients are updating their estate plans, just like you are all updating their financial plan as you go. So I want to highlight that really quick. And then let's go through some Q&A. I know we've had a ton of questions. Nick, I think the most common question so far, and we'll go through, but what software are you using to draw all your diagrams in your financial plan, if you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, it's Microsoft Whiteboard. It's free. I use a $20 bamboo pen that I got from Best Buy.
I love it.
It's a pretty big initial investment.
I've asked Nick that question 17 times, and I have to keep going back to seeing what it was. So please, everybody, for Nick's sake, write it down and make sure so you don't have to bug him in the DMs like I do on LinkedIn.
Yeah. For anyone who's ever done a lot of the drawing with these pins, the best investment you can make is to get like a packet of those quad A batteries, the super small batteries, because they go out with no warning. And if you don't have a backup and you're dependent upon being able to draw pictures, you're in trouble.
Absolutely. Okay, so we got that question out of the way. One recently here in terms of who is typically a fit for trust and will. Local total assets are under 5 million. That's funny you say that amount. That's typically our threshold. There's younger families. To give you a kind of general idea, we've helped about 300,000 families. About 75% of them are 30 to 54 years old with under 5 million in assets, just FYI. But happy to connect with you one-on-one. Nick, folks are asking, what is your preferred planning software? What do you use?
Yeah, I use Right Capital.
Okay.
I think they're all about the same. Just pick the one you hate the least.
I loved Right Capital. For me, it was in the middle of Money Guide Pro and eMoney. So it gave you, I thought it was clean to give you advisor things to look at, but also great talking points. Not to sell a software while I'm here. But.
Yeah, I think it like we do a lot of Roth conversion for folks, and I just like the functionality of the Roth conversion with Right Capital.
Agreed.
So the most common follow-up question we've gotten, Nick, is can you repeat again the type of pen that you recommend?
It's a bamboo. I hope they still make it. I got mine in 2017, $20 at Best Buy, and it literally, I mean, you can't see it, but the only verbiage on it is it says bamboo in silver.
I love it. Very simple, straight to the point. Nick, I'm sure you have families that maybe have more complex planning needs. I had a question come up in terms of, do you ever struggle to keep all the information, all the main next steps and priorities in one page?
No, because if I can't keep it in one page, there's no way that they can execute it. You know, let's give them 2 to 4 things. Let's get it executed. I'll give them 2 to 4, every day for the next 18 months if I have to.
Got it. Love it. Ryan, are you seeing any other questions that I may have missed here? Let's see.
So, I do see one. The E in my process stands for execute. I saw that one. Discovery, ideas, execute, and monitor.
Awesome. I wanted to ask too, Nick, actually, which I couldn't see in here yet, so let me know if I missed it. But is there anything you're doing with your CRM process or anything to alert you, to remind you to bug these people, or are you just hitting it during the meetings?
Yeah, so everything, we use Redtail as our CRM. And then after the meeting, obviously all of the one-page plan goes into the CRM as kind of, a recap of our discussion. But then I will automatically put the next activity out for whatever, we kind of discussed, 2 weeks or a month, or maybe, if we're in more of a maintenance mode, it might be 6 months. So yeah, everything lives within our Redtail and CRM. I wake up every morning, I go to Redtail, and it tells me like who I'm going to call, who I'm going to email.
Gotcha. I'm trying to clarify some of these questions and make sure they're not just comments and I'm asking questions. All right. Gotcha.
I'm excited that Ariel Lee is now going to be implementing smiley and frowny faces. I think her business is going to probably triple in the next 6 months.
I can see her being all over smiley and frowny faces.
The queen of Edward Jones.
Yeah. That's it.
Follow-up question here regarding trust funding. We do offer a very comprehensive trust funding guide for a client to understand what the next steps are. And we are actually rolling out, in a couple of states today, is deed transfers as well. So it is on the clients, but we are providing more and more resources when it comes to the trust funding question that came in. Amazing. That sounds good. I know we're right on time. We want to be obviously super respectful of everyone's time, including yours, Nick. I did put in a link. If you are currently not working with Trust and Will and are interested in learning more about our solution, how we work with advisors, what the process looks like, go to our website. It's trustandwill.com/advisors. And from there, you're able to schedule a demo, call, and from there, just learn a little bit more. And then, Nick, I'm going to put your, if you're good with it, I'm going to put your website on here.
Cool.
OhMyPlan.com. And then obviously if folks are on LinkedIn, which I'm assuming most of them are, I will drop in your profile on here as well, because I think you do a great job of always just, and I can say this because I've known you here for about a year, but you genuinely care about helping other people, not just your clients. So one, I think you're just a great connection for folks to follow you. And will there be a replay of the session? Yes, absolutely. We will actually, if you registered, as soon as we end the events, it will automatically send out the recording to you. Keep a lookout on these. We're going to be doing these monthly at the end of the month, primarily led by Ryan. And we will certainly have more guest speakers going on. But Nick, we're incredibly grateful for you to be here and for you to share your story in terms of some of the success that you're having in implementing the financial plan.
Hey, awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks, Nick.
Of course. Okay, great. And John, please email us that question. More than happy to schedule a call. But with that said, thanks again for everyone's time. I know it's your most valuable asset, and we'll see you next month. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.